To another user spotlight. I'm Steve Drost. With me, as always, is Will Kaplan. Of course, Will and I are both from the Quivr team. And today, our guest, no, you, Will, you and our guest today go back. You guys have been friends for, I would say friends, hopefully that's appropriate, for quite some time. Um, and 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 her today, right? Our guest today is Amy Irvine, who is the founder of Rooted Planning Group. And I am really excited, mainly I get to sit back today because you two know each other so well. And I know the two of you have gotten into the weeds on quite a few things. But Amy, if there's one thing I can say about her firm as a third party outsider, is I don't think anybody does the level of planning that she does. And I don't know, Will, if you'd agree with that or not.
I 100% agree with that. Amy and I have been talking about that for years. It's actually really kind of terrifying, the level of planning that they do, because I don't know about you, Steve, but I definitely have some imposter syndrome. And then I have a conversation with Amy and I'm like, oh, and it's verified and I'm not doing enough. So
Steal
it's
all
really
of my
impressive.
clients. Yeah, she's going to steal
Yeah.
all my clients because she does a really good job. Yeah, no, of course. But without further ado, Amy, thank you so much for joining us today. We'd love just a really quick, a little short background about your journey to get to where you are now, what your firm looks like. And then after we get through that, we can start diving into the cool things that you're doing in your firm and specifically how you're using Quivr to do that.
Sure. Well, the quick background is that I started in financial services back in 1994. So I've been doing it for a bit and I've seen lots of different CRM systems and lots of different financial planning systems. And in 2015, I actually spun off and started my own practice, started running my own practice. It was around 2018 that we started expanding the firm by hiring Kate and Becky and, have been continuing to grow the firm in that perspective. And now Kate and Becky are actually starting to become owners of the firm, which is very exciting for me. And the initial reason I started the firm was because I was in my mid 40s at that point in time, and many of the friends that I was working with, they couldn't find a financial planner to actually take them on because they had been doing the things that they thought they were supposed to be doing. They were saving in their 401k, they were saving, in 529 plans, but when they would interview other financial planners, they were being told that they didn't have enough assets to manage for them to actually take them on. And so, to be honest, it was a bunch of girlfriends and I that were sitting around, and one of them said, "Would you just launch your own firm already? Like, just do it. Like, and we'll be clients of yours, right?" So I did it. And they stayed true to their word. Many of them became clients, but it was that X generation women, that were looking, like not just women, but mostly women that were looking for a financial planner that would take them on, not based on their assets, but based on the fact that they wanted financial planning. And so that's how I launched the firm, was a real true financial planning based firm, flat fee. So we didn't charge based on assets under management. We charged based on complexity. And we still to this day charge based on complexity and still are a flat fee firm. And we just went through a whole revamp looking at everybody's fee again this year and explaining to them how the fee was being charged. And even now, love that idea of, if I have a complex life, I pay a complex fee. If I don't have a complex financial life, then I don't pay a complex fee. So it's been an exciting journey for all of us, and I'm excited to see where Kate and Becky take the firm, going forward as they start to become owners. But that's sort of the gist of it. And what was it, a year and a half ago? I think it was in October. I'm pretty sure. No, August, I think, of 2024. We switched to Quivr for our CRM system. It has been a journey exploring this software and moving away from other, CRMs and softwares that we've been able to consolidate and use this system as our hub for our business.
That- And I remember when you switched, because I guess a little bit of the backstory, Amy and I were in a study group together focused on Salesforce. A lot of the learning that I did originally to get started was in that group. And we were talking about like ways to try and automate more of our business process and just track more of our business process. And that's what kind of led me to learn about Salesforce, talk to Steve in the first place. You're sort of part of that linchpin connection for me to all of this, which like I love. But you've also been learning, I think, a lot about Salesforce as well for a long time now.
Hmm.
And so I can appreciate how Quiver is a good fit. So like with that said, I mean, what I'm curious about, because what we see from our side is, and I think you're probably going to be a little bit different than our average user, but what we see is like a big spike in the functionality that users are adopting after about 12 months. It's usually, somewhere probably between like, what do you think, Steve? Like 9 and 15 months, maybe, when they kind of get that little bump of, I think I understand how this works. Now I'm really going to try and take it to the next level.
Mhm.
And my guess is you were probably ahead of that a little bit just based on your history. But I am curious, like some of the big things that you're using it for that you really like, where you feel like you've maybe, not only just used Quivr, but then kind of made it rooted Quivr as well. Because I know you guys are doing
Yeah.
some pretty powerful things with it. So is there anything that immediately kind of comes to mind?
Well, there's a couple of things. So last year, well, you and I worked on our tax tracking process because our firm also does tax preparation. And that's one of those pain points. Like, did the client send us all the documentation they were supposed to? Did we need to return something to them? What stage is it in? When did we get the documentation? And we were using, well, we started out with a Google Sheet and said, that's not going to work. And then we did a system called Monday for a little while. So we tried that and, utilized that for tracking. But there again, Monday works well, but not as well as like, oh, because you can't necessarily go back and forth as easy. So we weren't able to pull some of the reports of when we actually got the documentation, where with Quivr, we were able to actually see the date that we got the documentation, what stage it was in. We had different module screens that we could pull up and actually see what the stages were. So, and it made it really easy to pull reports and say, okay, what's the average length of time that returns are sitting there when we return or have to go back to the client to get documentation? We made it very clear to our clients, like, if you don't give us everything that we need to prepare your return, because we do give them a checklist, you go to the bottom of the pile. And so we didn't want to be unfair to the people that spent the time of getting us all the documents. And this system really revolutionized that process.
Mm.
Along the way, we did a few little tweaks along the way of like, oh, we don't really use this. We thought we would, but we didn't really use it. But in the end, and of course, we're gearing up to that again for the 2026 filing season. But we felt like it went so much smoother just being able to track. So that was one big thing that we implemented pretty much right off the bat, right? Because we were new last year, we were using that by February of 2025. So that was pretty quick. Throughout the course of this year, we've started implementing a lot more of the, I would say, what if functions. We've been building a lot of things that have the what if functions in there. So does this have this? Does this have that? We moved away from the module system of client meetings and client prep to a what if system for client meetings and client prep. So when we have a process that runs 3 weeks before client meetings that says, Amy, you've got to prepare for this meeting coming up. What do you want done? And we check some boxes, right? We add it to this list, and then it goes to the proper destination of who needs to complete what. So that was a big help in our firm as far as how to prepare for client meetings. And then even one of the big things that we're implementing in 2026 is for us to sort of stay out of our email system. And Mary on our team will be monitoring our emails, which she does right now. And right now what she does is move them into like folders. So like if a client emails me something, it gets moved into a Amy needs to follow up folder. But I still need to know what I need to do. And my goal is to log into Quivr and be in Quivr and have my task list up and just see what tasks I need to do. And if there's an email that comes in that is like a planning related email, then she's going to create a task for me that's like, email that we've got a template that we're going to use that's basically like email response needed. And then in the message part of the email, it'll have sort of the what needs to be done. So then I know what planning needs to be done. And then that's where I do have to hop back into email to respond to the client right now. I have to hop back into email to respond to the client. But I know the tasks that I need to do based on my task list instead of copying between email and Quivr, and everything's going to be there. All of the tasks for Schwab get put into Quivr. Like if there's a CD that's coming due, that automatically gets put into Quivr. If there's an address change, that automatically gets put into Quivr. We've starting in 2026, even more than we did in 2025, are going to make that our hub. And for all of us on the team, except Mary, we are going to try to stay out of email as much as we physically can. And this even includes like vendor stuff. So like, let's say I get a bill from, I don't know, somebody, right? That gets launched in a task so that we can track even that kind of, it's a productivity thing. We're trying to track productivity. And this is going to help us understand where our productivity is or isn't, and then be able to really make some changes. So I'm a big tracker of my time. Like if you looked at my calendar, it will freak you out. Will has seen it before. He's like, oh my God. I'm like, yes, but I track my time. Like I know exactly what I do when I do
Will,
it.
is she worse than me? You've seen my calendar. Is she worse than me?
Yeah, her calendar it's truly something to behold. I mean, like, her planning is on another level, and her calendar is, I mean, like, yours is full, but hers is like I mean, it's like just nonstop.
Yeah. No, I meant more so like the blockage. Like, here's an hour for this. Here's 45 minutes. She's okay. That's awesome. And
Yeah.
I'm not surprised. That was an awesome list. I mean, the big three things I just got there is you guys have gone super deep down on your tax prep process, which makes a ton of sense. That's, a huge undertaking. I can't wait to get into the meeting prep and follow up. That was really cool. I think I have an idea of what you're doing, and I'm really excited to go into that. And then the fact that you're getting your advisory and your planning team out of your email is something that I think if you were to poll advisors, every single one of them would say they want that, but such a small percentage actually achieve it. So I'm really excited to learn more about that too. This is a good list. I'm excited, Amy.
Yeah, there's so much here. So, like, I guess to give a little bit of foundational info, like, Amy and I started working on tax prep early on, and she's actually helped kind of be the architect a little bit for what we will eventually be rolling out, which is a customization of projects specifically for tax prep. And there's a couple pieces that get kind of tied into that. But obviously, I mean, the reporting side of it, I think, is huge because you're not alone. I mean, when I went and talked to other advisors that were doing that, one of the things I say is like, well, as documents come in from the clients, that's when I know I'm ready to like start working on their return. And that is what governs the order. I mean, that seems to be a really common way that people do it. And what's great is having that ability to then like pull a report and say like, okay, well, who should we be working on in what order? And being able to control all of that through like statuses and steps and all of the little, the details that a true project management system gives you. But then right there with all the rest of your information right there inside of Quivr, which I think is great. And so for people that are listening, it's a customization of the project module. We're going to see it for other advisors that are doing prep. It's going to be coming out as part of Quivr. So this is sort of year end in 2025. I would expect everybody to have it very, very soon. But I mean, yeah, like going through that together, I learned a ton. Hopefully you've got it sounds like you've got a tool now that's really helpful. And it really goes in. I think one of the key things that I hear whenever I talk to Amy is that not only is she getting a lot of information into Quivr, but she's also really figured out how to use the reporting functionality to sort of see what the firm is doing and what the people are doing. And like that to me is one of the things that you guys have really mastered. And so one of the things that we hear a lot that I'm really curious about, I mean, I want to follow up on this one too. I'm going to cut the line a little bit, I think, on Steve, but with getting all of your tasks into Quivr, you've got to have just a wall of tasks. And that terrifies some people because they're like, there's too much. Like I feel overwhelmed. It's too big. And so what I'm curious is when you interact with your tasks, are you doing that from the home page or are you doing that from like the task page? Do you have a preference?
Yeah, so the task page is nice to go to, or the homepage is nice to go to just sort of see big picture, but I definitely use the task page to see what's due today, right? And so one of the things that we all committed to was, we set these dates. Some are hardcore dates, right? We have to have certain things done. But then at the end of the day, if there's tasks that don't need to be done, then we look at those and say, well, when do they actually need to be done? If it's not tomorrow, is it Friday? And one thing that I'm working really hard on is asking, am I actually the one that needs to do the task? Or is it something somebody else can do. And that's an ongoing challenge for me, because it's just, oh, I know how to do it. But it's also, I look at it as a training opportunity for somebody else to learn how to do something different if I can reassign it to somebody else. But we have committed to say that at the end of the day, we're going to look at our task list. And if there's things that aren't done today, just take a few minutes and reassign them to a date. Now, this is where the calendar comes in really handy, because I can look at my calendar. I'll look at it and say, oh, realistically, this task is, if it's a big one, this task is going to take me 2 hours. Let me go book some time where I am actually going to work specifically on that task, right? So that gives me the direction, because the direction to say, I have to work on this. I know it's going to take me a couple hours. So let me move it to this day that I know I'm going to work on it. And that sort of gets it out of it, right? So, and the team has tended to do that too, but that's the report, or the section that I tend to look at as my tasks. But even for other people, so I've built reports that show me everybody's tasks, right? So I can see individual people's task lists as well. So I can pull that up, and often I'll look at that to think, okay, I want Muriel to do this, but Muriel has a whole lot to do today. So I'm going to throw that into Friday when it looks like her task list is a little bit more manageable. So I'll use it for that purpose too, to be able to see when there might be a little bit more availability, especially if it's not something that's immediately needed for me or for the. So the task list is definitely something I use a lot. But to your point earlier about reports, and let me finish that. Once we went to looking at it on the task. So I personally have 2 tabs up. I always have my task tab up. Like I have the browser tab with all my tasks. And then I have whatever I'm working on in Quivr up. So I always have those 2 browsers going at the same time. That way, if something new pops in, I can see what it is. Is it due today? Is it something that I need to do? Is it something that can be pushed off to another day? So again, that's how we're currently using it. Didn't come to us immediately, but I would say over the course of the last year, that's the process that we've developed, and it seems to be working fine. So that wall of tasks that you're talking about, isn't as daunting because of what we've implemented. And when you get to the end of the day and you see all the what tasks are left over, if there's some things that really do need to be done the next day, we'll key them as high, and we know that we have to get them done.
Okay, that was part of my question. So really, as a firm, it sounds like you're sort of time blocking maybe that last 20 minutes, 30 minutes of the day.
Yeah.
And saying, this is our cleanup period. Before you check out, before you leave your desk, just review this stuff and reassign it. And what's amazing to me is this is one of those things that it's not particularly complicated. It's not particularly hard, but it is absolutely revolutionary. And I imagine that my hope is that there's a bunch of listeners that are like, oh, wow, I'm going to start doing that. And it will be as transformative for them. Because it's not it's just one of those light bulb moments of yes, this is what I've been missing. This is what I need. This is what I want. And then bringing that type of a change. And it's not like a huge technology shift. It's just how you're using the tech to run your business better. That's really, man, that's clever. What a great way to interact not only with your tasks, but just sort of manage the general flow of the firm too. And then the fact that you're sort of in there looking at not only your stuff, but kind of looking at everybody else's stuff to kind of steer the ship a little bit. That's fantastic. It's so good, Amy. I knew you'd have some really good ideas for us. Steve, go ahead.
Well, the common theme here, right, is so those of you that aren't familiar with Quivr, we give you maybe 1 or 2 sets of ways of accomplishing something, but because we're built on Salesforce, the end user has the ability to tweak or amend that to fit their desired outcome. So when Will made the comment of, are you just using the homepage? Well, the homepage tells you everything that you need to do in the next 10 days, and then everything your team is working on in the next 10 days, where based on how Amy as a team, that's not as applicable. So you guys simply, and you can create these lists in seconds. You just created your own separate lists inside of Salesforce, inside of Quivr, that are saved, easily accessible, and it shows you everything you need to see, right? So it's the same data, just presented in a more useful way. And even with the tax prep items, right? Yeah, that's unique. Maybe I don't know, there's a fairly small percentage of advisory firms, I would say, that do tax prep. I don't know, 5%, somewhere in that range. Your guess is as good as mine. Maybe you know the answer. But you were able to take one of our features and build in a way to do tax preparation inside of Quiver. Find me a more complex project management that you need to solve for in an advisory firm than doing task prep. If you were able to take our projects and tweak that, I would challenge you to find something that you can't implement. I don't know what it is, right? You would tackle the beast first, basically.
With Will's help, this is where the two of us, I think, work really well together because I can, one of the challenges that I had with Salesforce when he and I were in the study group together is that the complexity of Salesforce is the pro and the con, right? And so where I can really like the reports and the building of the reports, that's where my brain works really well. But some of the language and the writing of some of that, that's where Will's brain works really
Mhm.
well. So when the two of us came together to work on that, it required both of us, in my opinion, because I knew what I wanted to see. He knew how to code it.
But that's how most of our updates are working now. We have
Yeah.
users that are experts in a specific topic. We want your expertise combined with our operations and Salesforce experience to then work with you and make a killer feature and then release it to everybody. Our student loans section came from that. Most of our workflow engine came from that. One of your team members was on our workflow cohort. She helped us build the workflow engine, right? So we want that feedback and we'll happily help you. And then we get to give it to everybody. So it's a huge win just across the board.
Yeah, Kate was on the workforce team. And one of the things that we're working really hard on for 2026 as well is to not necessarily, I mean, we have to build tasks sometimes, right? Because that's how processes can work to a certain extent, but to not use the tasks for, this sounds weird, not use the task for the task. In other words, make almost everything we do actually through workflows because it's rare that there's something that is just a one step process. So we're trying to move away from the task environment or launching tasks and instead launching workflows. So that's one of the key things that we're actually working on for 2026.
And like,
And repeatable. That's the best
yeah,
part.
well, and as someone that came out of like a checklist manifesto mindset, I mean, that's kind of that was the book that originally put me on the path for all of this stuff is that, and I refer to it as process compliance. Like, this is how we do something in our firm. I want to do it the
Right.
same way every time. And I don't want to forget step 4C of the 8 steps that I need for this particular thing. And when you're doing just like, oh, I'll just throw a task in, you're absolutely right. Like, you lose all of that, like the
Hmm.
task step component, the chain of we go from this to this to this in this particular order for a reason. Like, to me, that's so powerful. So I love that, like, you're doing that, moving
Yeah.
away from tasks and into workflows. Like, that's exactly what we're hoping for. I mean, that's really
Well,
the way that we
and
see
the
this being the most successful.
Right. And the what if component of it, right? So like when I'll just use a simple one. I know we're at our time here, but a simple one is a distribution or, something that a client needs funds, right? So if you think about the process of that, what's the thing? Oh, you have to call like every single client, if it comes in email, whatever, we call them and verify, right? So that's step one of a distribution request. So somebody sends us an email, we launch the workflow. Mary on our team makes the phone call to the client. Okay, she goes to the next step. Next step goes to Muriel. Muriel looks, is there cash available? And she says yes or no. And if it's no, then the next step goes to the advisor to place a trade. If she says yes, then she just can go ahead. The next step that's launched is process the distribution. So she processes the distribution, and then the next step is call the client or email the client, let them know, right? So that's a whole process. And when we're able to use those what if functions, she doesn't have to go in and say, oh, well, this doesn't need trades, so don't place trades, it's an NA. So it makes it so much easier and smoother within our practice. And then I'm not getting tasks that I don't need to do anything with, right? And she doesn't have to catch that I'm getting a task that I don't have to do anything with. So those have been really good. It's been a real good implementer within our practice. Just like I said, like we're using that even with our client meeting preparation. So those are all things that we're doing and we're really excited about 2026. I mean, I'm personally ecstatic that I'm not going to have to go to my email and respond to something. Like that's huge for me.
Imagine if you didn't have those workflows built. Good luck getting out of your email. I mean, something as easy as that, Mary can just say, this is a
Yeah.
distribution for this client. She can go into
Yeah.
Quiver, start a workflow, select the distribution workflow, and then she'll immediately get the task to verify it. She knows she's getting that task. She'll make the
Yeah.
call. she'll hang up, she'll close that task, and now she doesn't need to worry about, does it go to who's the advisor for this, who's the one doing this, she's just done. So she can get back into the email because I'm sure she's fielding a ton of requests in an email. Whereas if she had to sit there for 5 or 10 minutes and think, what do I do with this again? Who does this go to? No, you've removed that redundancy, the redundancy in that thinking. It's just go to Quivr, start workflow, kick it off, and I'm done.
That's the goal.
So that is really, truthfully, the people that I know that are out of email, right? Advisors that are out of their email, they have that. They have incredibly well documented processes. Otherwise, good luck. Good luck explaining to your support staff what 7,000 different types of requests they need to know in order to get out of your email.
Well, we're excited about it. Email is something that is been a time suck for all of us. And I realize responding to clients is an important part of our jobs, but that's not what I mean by email being the time suck. It's not the responding component. It's the sorting through, looking to see what's important, no, I don't need to respond. Yes, I do need to respond. That's the time suck. And
For
I'm
sure.
very much looking forward to not getting hung up with that in 2026. So I can
In our
be out
last
climbing
couple of
more
minutes,
mountains.
I have to ask you about your meeting process. So inside of Quivr, we have what's called the meeting module. And the meeting
Mhm,
module came from a prior firm that I worked at when I was a low level paraplanner. I spent 6 hours every Monday making these huddle sheets, which had everything about the client, the contacts
mhm,
in the household, their assets, key planning things, open tasks, you name it. I spent 6 hours every Monday creating a bunch of these things, and I hated it. And the meeting module was meant to replace that process. Just tell me everything that's going on with the household. And one component of it is prep and follow up, where you can assign follow up steps and prep steps to
mhm,
various members of the team that service that client. And you don't do that anymore. And
mm-mm,
I'm actually excited about this because, again, Quivr will get you 80% of the way there. But if you want to tweak how things are going, then do it. You're not going to offend me.
mhm,
So I heard you have a process that runs 3 weeks before the meeting date, and a
mhm,
process in Quivr terminology is an automation. So every
mhm,
night, Quivr is looking for automations that you set up. So it sounds like you've done is it's looking for any meeting that's 3 weeks from now. And if it is, then something is automatically getting kicked off. Is that
mhm.
correct?
That's
Okay.
correct. Yeah.
What is that? I want to know.
So the first step of it is to say, hey, Amy, you've got a meeting coming up with client X in 3 weeks. What do you want done? And then we've got 5 or 6 things that you add to whatever needs to be done. Like we have something called summary of accounts. We have quantity, does something need to be exported to quantity? Do we have planning tasks that need to be completed? There's like, do we need a tax projection run? Like there's several different things. So you'll know what I mean by it. I say I click on the little plus, right? And that little plus and then when I hit complete, those little pluses go into individual tasks and they get distributed out to the various team members that do that work. So that's what launches their work. And it launches it like a couple days from like when I review it. And at the same time, one of those is like, hey, what do you want on the agenda? Right. So that's part of my process. So I look at that. I look to see what needs to go on the agenda, launch these tasks, and then the tasks get completed. And then our process is that Monday before the actual meeting, we're going in and just making sure that we're refreshing our memory on, whatever it is,
Amazing.
for the meetings those
So
weeks.
you're getting a workflow as the advisor 3 weeks ahead of time, and it's like a la carte. These are the 7 things, or the 4 things, or
Mhm,
the 3 things that I need my
mhm,
team to do in advance of that meeting. You check the button. I know exactly what it looks like. It just kicks that off. Your team's getting assigned all the work they need to do. You guys have the deadline and the buffer built in, so you know that the Monday before the meeting, everything's just going to be done, sitting there waiting for you.
yeah, and that gives because we have office hours 3 days a week within our team. It's basically at 1 o'clock on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. We have office hours. So if somebody's working on something and they have questions, they bring it to office hours, right? So that gives them enough time that if they're working on something and they have questions, because sometimes you get into something, you think you only have one question, and then you get into it again and you think you only have one more question. And so it gives them that enough time to actually bring things to office hours when we're working on something. And it gives us enough time to review the work and make sure we're familiar with anything that we need to bring ourselves up to speed on. But yeah, that 3 week period was really, and typically we don't schedule me if it's a emergency type meeting, then it's usually not something that would require those normal like preparation items.
It's
So I'm
typically
not
topic
worried.
specific. I need to review this.
Yeah.
My
Yeah.
401k plan changed. I have no idea what I'm doing,
Yeah.
things like that.
In which case we'll go in and launch a meeting module for that client specific topic so that we're keeping track of all of that, but it doesn't go in and launch all of those normal tasks
Because you're
that
still
we
going to have that normal quote unquote review meeting in whichever point in the future.
and we do use the modules for note taking. Like the modules themselves we use for the agenda prep and the meeting summary. So we do use the module that way. We just don't use
Yeah.
the prep tab and the follow-up tab.
You're not offending me. I think it's really cool what you're doing. I love it. Amy, thank you.
You're welcome.
I'm like, you know, proud parent over here, like seeing how somebody's using our system really cool. I think that's awesome. Thank you so much for sharing all the things you guys have done. I love it. I think it's really cool.
Well, we're thrilled with the system. It's to us, this is one of those systems that when people say, what's a system you would never get rid of? This is at the top of our would never get rid of, along with eMoney. Those are our two systems that are like non-negotiable with us. Advizon tried to get us to come over to use their workflow and their CRM system. And we were like, look, we love your trading side of things and your reporting and that, but just stop asking us because we're not changing.
Thank you so much for the kind words as well. Will, anything else to add?
I mean, I think I could probably talk to Amy about Salesforce for the rest of time. So, like, in the idea that we have to close this down at some point, I would say no. But certainly, I mean, as you know, I will continue conversations with Amy. If there's interesting stuff that I hear about, I can see us maybe doing a second one of these
Great.
specifically for her. Cause like I took so many things away from today of like if I would share that with other users, if I was still practicing, I would be doing that in my firm now because it's just some of this stuff is like genius level. So Amy,
Well, I took
like
notes.
Genius
amazing,
level.
really amazing to see how you've
You're funny.
implemented it.
I agree.
Well, I hope
Awesome.
you guys have a happy new year. Thank you for having me on the show. And anything we can share, yeah, we're happy to do, as you guys know. So thanks again.
Thank you, Amy. If you are a user of Quivr and you have questions about anything that we've discussed today, shoot us an email, submit a ticket, come to office hours, ask us questions. We'll do whatever we can to help you get down the path to increased efficiency. If you're not a Quivr user, that's all right. Nobody's perfect. Everybody makes mistakes, right? But remember, it's not too late. Come schedule a demo, come hang out with me, come hang out with Will, and see what Quivr can do for you in your practice.